This is the story about the missing bride. A young couple just got married. They had a reception with their friends and family. They sang, laughed, and danced all night. After the reception, they decided to play hide and seek. The groom covered his eyes and began counting down from 100, while the bride and the other guests went to go hide. The groom then found everybody except his beautiful bride. Everybody began to call her name and search everywhere for the young woman. They began to panic when they didn't find a trace of her. They eventually gave up looking and assumed she ran away to leave her husband. After weeks went by, the husband assumed she had second thoughts about marrying him. A few years later, a cleaning lady was cleaning the attic. She then came upon a trunk. Out of curiosity, she opened the trunk. She then found the corpse of the missing bride, who was still in her wedding dress. She accidentally locked herself in there and either died from suffocation or starving to death. Mysterious and unexplained photos, part 1. Up first we have the lady in the brown coat, or the babushka lady. The day JFK was assassinated, eyewitnesses said this woman recorded the whole thing. The FBI was never able to find this woman, and nobody knows the identity of her. Up next we have the Dyatlov Pass incident. A group of 9 experienced Soviet mountaineers died mysteriously in the mountains. The hikers ripped open their tent and ran barefoot into the snow trying to escape something. 6 died from hypothermia, 2 died of major chest fractures, and 1 suffered severe head injuries. He also had his tongue missing. And the clothing worn by the hikers was suddenly highly radioactive. Finally, we have the Solway Firth astronaut. A man took a picture of his daughter. At the time of the photo, he didn't notice anything strange. But after the picture was developed, he noticed a spaceman standing behind her. There was nobody around them when the photo was taken. This is a scary story about the 2 spoons. A kid named Nick loved to watch disturbing videos, and that night he came across one he never seen before. It was a video of a man using 2 spoons to pop out his eyeballs. Nick watched the whole video. Even though it was so disturbing, he wanted to puke. He forced himself to finish it even though he wished he hadn't. When the video was over, he heard his mom call dinner is ready. He raced downstairs and sat at the table. His dad was reading the newspaper, and his mom was setting up dinner. Then his dad said, "That's odd. This article claims a viral video is going around and it's dangerous to watch. Apparently it causes anybody to watch it to go insane and pop out their own eyeballs." His father then looked up and was paralyzed from what he was seeing. His mom then looked over and screamed, "Oh my God, what have you done?" But it was already too late. Nick could feel the spoons in his hand, but he couldn't see a thing. This is the story about the car accident. There was a girl who was arguing with her parents. She wanted to go to a party with her friends, but her parents wouldn't allow her. Later that night, she decided to sneak out of her house and go to the party anyway. At the party, she met a guy who was very attractive and made her laugh. The guy then asked her to go to another party nearby. She accepted and they left the party. As they were walking to his car, the girl noticed he was very drunk and had second thoughts about getting in the car with him. But she liked him a lot, so she said, "What's the worst that could happen?" They were on the highway when the boy started to drive reckless. She told him to slow down, but he didn't listen. He then swerved in the oncoming traffic and went head on with another car. When the girl woke up, she was in a hospital bed. She asked the nurse if the driver was okay and the people they crashed into, but the nurse said everybody died on impact besides you. As the girl was dying, she whispered to the nurse, "Tell my parents I love them very much and I'm sorry I disobeyed them." The nurse then got a sad look on her face and then said, "I'm really sorry to say this, but the people who died in the other car were your parents." How the way you sleep says about you, part 2. If you sleep in the soldier position, it means you're very quiet and reserved. You also expect everybody to be nice and kind, and you sleep in this position most likely because of medical benefits. If you are a pillow hugger, it means you like to get cozy and be cuddled. Also, you cherish every single relationship you have with the important people in your life above all else. If you sleep in the free faller position, it means you are very confident and social. And you have very thick skin and can take criticism and insults from anybody. Planets you never knew existed, part 1. Up first we have 55 Concrete E. This planet is about 40 light years away from us. Its surface temperature is over 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's believed to be covered with diamonds, and it's twice the size of Earth. Up next we have HD 1897-33b. This planet is 62 light years away from Earth. Wind speed on this planet reaches over 5,500 miles an hour. That's 7 times faster than the speed of sound. Temperatures reach over 1,600 degrees. This planet rains glass too, and it rains sideways due to the fast winds. Finally, we got Korat 7b. This planet is 489 light years away from Earth. It rains rocks on this planet. The surface temperature is 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit. A year on this planet lasts 20 hours, and there's nothing but volcanoes, lava, and rocks on the surface. This is the story about the buried wife. One day an old woman got sick, and her husband spent every second beside her. Later on, she was pronounced dead. She was the man's one true love, and he was devastated. She was then buried the next day. The husband was so sad, he tried to jump on the casket when it was getting lowered. The man then returned back to his house, lonely and miserable. That night, a strange scratching sound woke him up. It was getting louder and louder, and he didn't know where it was coming from. When he turned over in his bed, he was met by a terrifying sight. He saw a figure of a woman standing outside his window. With fear, he realized it was his wife. When he ran to the window, she vanished. He called the doctor and begged for his wife's grave to be dug up. But the doctor said no, and said he was just struggling with stress. But he kept seeing her at the same window every night. The man had enough and went to go dig her up on his own. When he reached the coffin, he opened the lid and stepped back in horror. His wife's face had a frozen scream, the coffin was filled with scratches, and her fingers were worn down to the bone. Most scary games to play in real life, Part 11. This is the dry bones game. It involves summoning a demon that will play sort of a game of tag with you. You will need a bathroom with a mirror, some matches, and make sure nobody is home. It must be 12:01 when you start the game. Turn off all lights and electronic devices. Now you are ready to begin. Now light the match and imagine something you want. Then say I am aware of your presence, and I welcome you into my home, but not into my body, come now. If your match lasts more than 15 seconds, he is pleased with you, and you may continue. Now go to the largest room in your house. This next part could take 5 minutes or 5 hours, so be patient. When he is ready, you will hear a very low unearthly moan and pressure around your body. Now you must go hide. You must hide quickly and remain quiet because he's looking for you. You must remain hidden until 3 a.m. If he finds you before then, he will take you and do whatever he wants with you, but if he doesn't find you, you will get anything your mind imagines. Whatever you wanted will be waiting for you the next morning. This is the scary game to play in real life called Cat Scratch. Cat Scratch is a very scary game that you could play with your friends. To play the game, you need at least 2 people. Then you sit on the floor, and your friend lies on the floor on their back, with their head in your lap. Next, you rub the person's temple in a soothing motion as you tell them a scary story about a cat. This is the story you say. You are walking through a dark alley at night. You are the only one there. The ground is slick with rain. The alley is filled with garbage cans and litter. But then you hear something. A movement in the garbage cans. You pick up your pace. You want to get out of the alley fast. But then you see something. Red eyes, glowing red cat eyes. You run, but the big cat chases you and catches you. It scratches you 1, 2, 3. Cat scratch, cat scratch, cat scratch. Now after you finish that story, the person laying down has to get up quickly and pull up the back of their shirt. Red bloody claw marks will then appear on the person's back, and they won't even feel a thing. This is why you should never drink Monster Energy again. Monster Energy drink is actually working with the devil. The logo for Monster is actually the number 666 in Hebrew numerals. This is super scary, but that's not all. There is also a cross in the letter O of Monster, and every time you take a drink of Monster, the cross turns upside down, representing the devil. This is extremely creepy, and I for one am never drinking Monster Energy again. These are foods that don't exist anymore that we all miss, part 1. Up first is Trix yogurt. This is probably some of the best yogurt ever, and I never met a person that didn't like it. So if you never had this, I really feel bad for you. Next up is the lime flavor of Skittles. The lime Skittle is 1,000 times better than the green apple one that they have now. It's still a mystery on why they changed this flavor. Up next were these little sweet candy wax bottles that could actually be the best tasting thing ever. These were so good and addicting to eat, but they're extremely hard to find now, and overall don't even exist anymore. These are pictures that you have to look at twice. Up first is a pretty simple picture of a girl and a guy. But who do you guys think is sitting in the chair? Most people think that the girl is sitting in the chair and that the guy is behind her. But if you look closely, it's actually the other way around. Next is this photo of 2 girls, and it seems like one of the girls has a very hairy arm. Or at least that's what it looks like. But if you look closely, you can tell that that is a man's leg, and those are his shorts. In this photo, it appears that a man is wearing girls' short shorts and hugging his girlfriend who is sitting down. But if you take a closer look, you can see that the man is actually sitting down and the girl is hugging him from the back. Finally is this photo. First glance at this photo, you would think that this girl had a boob slit, but in reality, it's actually her elbow and she is posing for a picture. These are pictures that will confuse 99% of you, part 2. Up first is a picture of a lava pit that looks like it's sucking the souls of people down into hell. This is extremely weird and creepy, and it actually took me a couple looks to understand it. Next is a picture of a rock that was frozen and looks exactly like a frozen human heart. It's actually scary how identical this is, and what if actually this is the heart of another being? Finally is a picture taken from somebody's hotel room in Tokyo. This photo looks like the cityscape, but if you take a closer look, it's actually just a cemetery in Japan and it's not the city at all. These are pictures that you have to look at twice, part 3. First is a picture of a man who appears to be sleeping on the couch. But if you take a closer look, you can see that that is actually a picture from a magazine and it's lying perfectly on the man's face, making it look like that's his face. Next is a picture of a little girl who is standing in some sort of parking lot. But if you look at her legs, it looks like something is wrong with them. But in reality, the little girl is holding a bag of popcorn that is blending in with the grass and making her legs appear weird. Finally is a picture of a dog, and it looks like it got cut in half. But if you take a closer look, you can see that is just a piece of wood next to the dog, and the way the dog's body is angled, it looks like it got cut in half, but it didn't. These are illegal baby names that you cannot name your kids, part 2. Up first is the @ symbol. This name is banned in China because they do not allow symbols as people's names. So if you ever decide to live in China, just know you cannot name your kid @. Next up, in Germany, you cannot name your kid Lucifer. Germany has this name banned because in the German language, Lucifer is considered inappropriate. Finally, the name King is banned in the United States. There really is not a reason why this name is banned, but if you're in the United States and you want to name your kid King, you can. McDonald's is hiding something that they do not want you to know. Everybody definitely had and heard about McDonald's. McDonald's may be good, but we have no idea what we're eating there. Nobody has any clue what's inside the food, except one person, which is the CEO of McDonald's, Chris Kempsniski. And he said that he will never eat McDonald's ever. So if the CEO of the company is not eating his own company's food, there has to be something seriously unhealthy with it. So I don't even know if I'm going to McDonald's again. These are life hacks that you need to know. First, if somebody pushes all the buttons in the elevator, just press each button twice to avoid going to those floors. Next up, if you get calls from annoying spam numbers, I have a solution. All you have to do is press the number 9 during the call, and it will then place your number in a do not call list. Next, if you ever get a headache that just won't go away, just get a lime and cut it in half, then rub it on your forehead, and your headache will then go away instantly. Next, everybody hates paper cuts, but there is a solution that heals it and makes it feel better quicker. All you have to do is just rub chapstick on it. Finally, if you need an effective way to study for a test in school, just chew gum, then chew the exact same flavor during the test, and it will help you remember what you studied. Most popular food in each state, part 1. Most popular food in California is avocado or avocado toast. Most popular food in Georgia is chicken biscuits. Most popular food in New York is pizza. Everybody loves New York style pizza. Most popular food in Pennsylvania is a Philly cheesesteak. If you ever been to Philadelphia, you definitely got a cheesesteak. And most popular food in Florida is a key lime pie. This is what your favorite color says about you, part 1. If your favorite color is purple, it means that you are a perfectionist who requires emotional security. Also, you're a very nice person, and when somebody needs help, you always help them. Next, if your favorite color is red, you never hold grudges against people and you love to move on quickly. You're also very outgoing, and you enjoy having a good time and being the center of attention. Finally, if your favorite color is blue, your friends and family are very important to you. Also, you love watching videos to pass the time. And you also live a sober life. What your hair color says about you, part 2. If your hair color is red, your personality is just as bright as your hair. You're sassy and are not afraid to show it off. You never take no for an answer. You're very straightforward and do not mind telling it how it is. If you dye your hair a color, you love adventure. You don't care what people think about you and you love trying new things. Also, your personality is bold and loud and you love staying out with your friends. If your hair color is dirty blonde, you are very simple. You love trying to do things, but nothing really that crazy. You're always smiling, always going with the flow, and you always accept things how they are. These are pictures that will confuse 99% of you, part 3. Up first is a picture of a bunch of backpacks that look like they were hand-drawn. This is extremely confusing, and these backpacks look too fake to be real. Next, everybody knows about the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But I bet you did not know this. Inside of it is completely hollow. This is pretty crazy, and I'm still pretty confused after seeing this photo. Next is a picture of a UFO that appears to be coming down from the sky. But actually, it is just a reflection off the window from the light inside the building, making it look like a UFO. Finally is this crazy photo that only 1% of people can see move. So if you see this photo moving, consider yourself lucky. These are pictures that will confuse 99% of you, part 5. First is a picture that appears to be cut into 4 slices. But if you take a closer look, you will notice that this photo is actually just one picture. This is completely mind-blowing, and it took me a couple seconds to see it. Next is a picture of boats that appear to be floating in the sky. But in reality, the boats are on a lake and not in the sky, and it just looks like that because of the angle the photo was taken at. Next is just a picture of a simple brick wall. That is until you look at it again. There is actually a very big cigar sticking out of the wall. If you cannot see the cigar, just keep looking, you will see it. This is the creepy story about pick 1. One day a woman went to a doctor's appointment. She left her 2 kids home alone when she went. Kyle, who was 6, and Mark, who was 14. She was gone for around an hour, but when she arrived home, she saw her front door broken down. She immediately started to panic and rushed inside the house, hoping her 2 kids were okay. When she got to the living room, she saw her kids tied up and bloody, and a man with a gun standing between them, saying, "You pick who I kill." She started to panic and didn't know what to do. She then said, "Why are you doing this?" Then the man pulled out a second gun and said, "I'll kill both and you if you don't hurry up." The mother took a deep breath and said, "Kill Mark," and then she pointed at him. The man then said, "You're an awful mother," and then pointed the guns at her and shot her in the head. He then ran out of the house, leaving the boys tied up and their dead mom laying in front of them. These are pictures that fooled the entire world, part 6. Up first is a picture of a group of friends. At first glance, it looks like a perfect photo. Until you look in the background, you can see that every man in this photo is exactly the same person. This photo is super crazy, and it had the whole world confused. Next is a photo of 8 rainbows. When this photo went viral, everybody was amazed at this beautiful photo. But it actually turns out that the photo was photoshopped and it's not real at all. This is a picture of a cheerleader who pooped mid-stunt during a football game. When people saw this photo, they felt extremely bad for the girl and couldn't believe that it actually happened. But it turns out the photo was photoshopped and it's luckily not real. Most scary urban legends, part 2. This is Slender Man. Slender Man is a human-shaped monster who is super tall and his face is white and featureless. He also wears a suit. He has extremely long fingers and tentacles that can reach as long as he wants. He can decide who can't see him and who can see him at the same time. He used to be very aggressive. He followed his victims incessantly until he impaled them on a tree and made their organs disappear. But now he observes in the shadows and takes his victim's soul little by little. Those who are stalked by him start to become forgetful and unstable. They realize they don't have a social life anymore and feel completely isolated. He has the ability to drive them insane. Then he takes them and they're never seen again. You know he's around because he makes electronics act up. When his victims are kids, he's very nice and tries to win their trust, and then makes them disappear when they go in the woods alone or try to go home. This is a scary story about the doctor. There was a girl named Abby who went to the hospital for a sickness. She had a very nice doctor named Dr. Knight. Abby was supposed to be in the hospital for only a week, but Dr. Knight kept insisting that it was not smart to leave yet. As the weeks went by, Abby felt sicker and weaker, and told Dr. Knight that she wasn't feeling any better, and that she was actually feeling worse. Dr. Knight assured Abby that she was alright, and told her to keep fighting. Abby ended up being there for a month, and it turned out she was slowly dying. One night, Dr. Knight went into Abby's room and sat down beside her bed and said, "Abby, I am really sorry, and I hated that I had to do this." "Had to do what?" said Abby. Dr. Knight then said, "I've been draining your blood from your body for the past month. My wife is dying and your blood was the perfect match. I'm sorry, but I'm really not." These are the most scariest curses to use in real life, part 2. To perform the second curse, all you need is an egg. Then go get something to write with, and write the full name of the person on the egg that you want to curse. Then after you do that, get something to make a hole in the egg. It does not matter what the size of the hole is, just make sure not to make it too big. Next, go outside and dig up a little hole and bury the egg in it and wait for it to rot. The curse will take effect in about a week as the egg rots. Then the person that you cursed will be more and more sick every single day. The egg will take a week to rot, and so will the person you cursed. The person you cursed will then die from a mysterious illness after about a week. Creepy facts that will give 99% of you chills, part 5. If humans killed each other at the same rate that we kill animals, then we would be extinct in 17 days. This is interesting, but also very chilling. After the Pulse nightclub shooting, when the cops were investigating, there were countless phones ringing next to the victims' dead bodies, and it was their loved ones and friends calling them, hoping they would answer and say that they're okay. According to the FBI, over 40% of murders go unsolved, meaning if you get killed, there's a pretty good chance that the person that killed you will never spend a day in jail. If you live to become the oldest person alive, this means the entire human population has been replaced in your lifetime except for you. Humans have enough bite power to bite off their own finger, the bone and all. But the only thing stopping us is our brain's natural safety factor. Now don't get any ideas to go try this, because you will be missing a finger. This is how much of different foods you need to eat to kill you, part 2. Up first, if you drink 14 bottles of water in one sitting, you will die because your kidneys cannot process it. But I don't imagine anybody being that thirsty. Next up, if you're a fan of cherries, you would have to eat 3 cherry seeds in one sitting to die. This is because they contain cyanide. Finally, you would have to eat 24 bottles of toothpaste to die. Now, I recommend that nobody tries this, and I'm sure that nobody will, but the more you know, the better. This is the story about the hit and run. It was raining hard one day, and a boy named Jeff was driving down a tight road. It was very hard to see and it was slippery. He was in a rush to get home and play video games with his friends, when suddenly he saw a man walking on the road. He tried to swerve, but it was too late. He hit the man walking, throwing him 30 feet forward, and his car started to spin. Jeff panicked, and without checking on the man, he drove away. After leaving the man for dead, Jeff felt guilty and it bothered him a lot. When he got home, he noticed his mom was on the phone, but he didn't want to bother her since she was talking to somebody. Jeff was walking up the stairs when he heard his mother scream, "Your dad got hit by a car and he's dead." The driver didn't bother to stop. He could have been saved if the driver called the police, but it was too late. Jeff immediately fell to the ground and started screaming and crying. He couldn't believe what he'd just done. Months passed, and Jeff never told anybody it was him. But when he's sleeping, he swears he hears his dad saying, "Why, son? Why?" This is a scary story about Read the Sign. One night, an 8-year-old girl and her mom were watching TV, when suddenly the screen began to flicker. Then a ghostly woman in all red appeared on the TV. She was holding a sign with words written in red ink on it. It said, "This is a special announcement. Parents, please send your children to bed immediately." The mother was worried and told her daughter to go to bed, but the young girl didn't want to. But her mother made her and grabbed her arm and took her to her room. The mom then went back to the living room, and when she looked at the TV again, the woman on the screen was holding a new message, and it said, "Please wait." The mother sat patiently on the sofa, waiting for the special announcement. After 5 minutes passed, nothing happened and she began to get bored. Just then, the woman on the screen had a new message. The writing was tiny and very difficult to see. The mother moved closer to the TV, trying to read the words. The message said, "Thank you, your children are now dead." Click the link in my bio and download the app to hear the rest of the story and see what happens next. These are pictures that prove our life is a lie. Up first, this is how towels are actually stacked in stores. So, next time you're in a store, whatever you do, do not pull on the towels. Next up, this is the actual shape of Earth. It is actually not perfectly round, but instead it's a little pushed in. So, all the people that said the Earth is not round, you were kind of right. Next up, if you ever went to Subway and asked for a footlong, it is actually not a foot long. It's usually around 10 to 11 inches. Finally, alligators just don't float in water. They actually walk on 2 legs. This is actually kind of creepy. And what would you do if an alligator started chasing you on 2 legs? These are pictures that fooled the entire world, part 2. Up first is a pilot who took a selfie mid-flight. When this photo went viral, people were amazed that this pilot actually took a selfie mid-flight. But it later turned out that this photo was photoshopped, and it sadly wasn't real at all. Next is the photo of Neil Armstrong on the moon. Many people believe that Neil Armstrong never went to the moon. And this picture was NASA's hoax to fool the Russians. I am not sure on what would be more spectacular. The fact that NASA actually fooled the whole world and made Russia waste their money on space exploration, or the fact that Neil Armstrong actually landed on the moon. Finally is the photo of the lion who is strapped into a machine in order to make the iconic MGM intro. Millions of people believe this photo, but in reality, the photo is actually a lion being diagnosed at the vet's office. These are pictures that broke the internet, part 7. Up first is this picture. I know everybody remembers this picture. When this picture went viral, about 50% of people could see the cigar in the wall, and the other 50% had no idea it was there. The cigar is 100% sticking out of the wall, and if you can't see it, then I don't know. Next up is a picture that went viral a couple years back, and it showed Kim Jong-un testing some sort of missile. Many believe that it was a nuclear bomb that was coming straight towards the west coast of the United States. But luckily, this photo turned out to be photoshopped, and it's not real. Next up is this picture. This picture shows somebody finding a giant skeleton, which made a lot of people believe that there was giants once on Earth. But after this photo went viral, it turned out to be fake and it wasn't real. These are the worst countries to get arrested, part 2. Up first is Mexico. In Mexico, the police are very corrupt and are even tied to local gangs and the cartel. So, if any of you ever go to Mexico soon, or in your lifetime, please behave there. Next up is Thailand. If you get arrested here, not even a lawyer can help you. And most of the time, they hold people in prison for months without charging them with anything. Prison cells there are also extremely crowded, with upwards to 70 to 100 people sleeping on the floors. So, if you ever get arrested in Thailand, I really feel bad for you. This is the scary story about the mirror in the closet. There was a girl who had a bedroom closet. On the inside of the closet door, there was a mirror. The girl loved to freak herself out, and sometimes she would open the closet door at night and just stare at her reflection in the mirror. But one night when she did this, she was surprised to see an interesting effect. Due to the interplay of light and shadow, when she looked in the mirror, it seemed like her reflection had black, empty eyes and a huge gaping mouth. After admiring the optical illusion for a moment, the girl went to the bathroom. But when she turned on the bathroom light, she remembered something that made her lock herself inside the bathroom. Then she started to scream loud enough to wake her parents. She remembered that earlier that day, her father had removed the mirror from her closet door. Horror movies 99% of you can't finish, part 1. Up first is the Poughkeepsie tapes. The Poughkeepsie tapes is about a serial killer in Poughkeepsie, New York. And he records tapes of torturing and killing his victims. And in this movie, we are shown those tapes, intertwined with interviews of police officers, family members of victims, and even a victim herself to get a perspective of the killer and his crimes. Most of the footage in this movie is downright creepy and disturbing, and most people can't handle it. The footage also includes the murder of a young child and the torture of several victims. So, let me know if you can finish this movie, because 99% of people can't. This is a creepy story about eating candy. One night, a little girl was standing in the doorway of her mother's room. The girl said, "Mom, there's somebody in my room eating candy." "Don't be silly," her mom said. "Go back to bed." "I can't go back to bed," said the girl. "There's somebody eating candy." She sounded like she was about to cry. The mother then sat up in her bed and said, "Please, just go back to bed." The girl said, "Okay, Mom," then turned around and walked back to her room. As the little girl walked back to her room, she wondered why her mother didn't care. When she got back into her bedroom, she looked around the room to see if the man was still eating candy. She then saw him in the corner of the room. The girl then said to the man, "Mommy thinks I should go back to bed." The man said good as he walked out of her bedroom door and out of their house. The girl then picked up the bloody dog collar that was on the ground that read candy. She started crying and said out loud, "Why didn't my mom believe me?" These are photos that seem fake but are actually real. Up first is a picture of a burnt out utility pole. This photo looks fake and completely photoshopped, but it is 100% real. The wires are still holding up the pole perfectly, and it looks super crazy. Next up is a picture of a building in Paris. Anybody's first glance at this photo would think that it's fake or photoshopped, but this is actually a real building. It's one of the most unique buildings in the world and also attracts a lot of tourists. Next is a cruise ship that appears to be cruising on land, but the ship is so big that it is towering over the mountain, making it look like it's sailing on land. Finally is the staircase to heaven. Now this photo looks completely fake, but it's not. It's a sculpture made by an artist, and the steps are actually just getting smaller and smaller until they make a point. These are insane North Korean laws that will blow your mind, part 5. First, in North Korea, it is illegal for anybody to own or have a Bible, and if you are caught with one, you will be executed right on the spot. Next up, citizens of North Korea who try to escape will either be sent to labor camps, killed, or even worse, tortured. This is extremely sad because these people honestly just want a better life. Finally, you cannot disrespect Kim Jong-un in any way. For example, if somebody sees a picture of Kim Jong-un on the ground on the street, they cannot step on it or walk past it. They actually have to pick it up and hand it over to authorities. And if it's damaged in any way, they will be sent to prison. Photos that reveal what kind of phobias you have, part 3. Up first is this picture. If this picture makes you want to run back to your bed and hide under your sheets, then you probably have a gyrophobia, which is the fear of crossing streets. Up next is this photo. If you take a look at this photo and feel immediately weird and just not want to look at it anymore, then you definitely have gyrophobia, which is the fear of bridges and crossing bridges. Up next is this photo. If you're getting scared looking at this photo or just completely creeped out, then you definitely have pediophobia, which is the intense fear of dolls. These are pictures that fooled the entire world, part 4. Up first is the picture of a pregnant woman's stomach where you can see the baby's foot imprint. When this photo first came out, people were very worried about the woman and her baby because this is not supposed to happen. But luckily the photo was fake and it's not real at all. Next is a picture of a woman walking her horse and a man walking his dog. When people first saw this photo, they couldn't believe how big the man's dog is and immediately gave it the crown of the largest dog on earth. But everybody soon found out that the photo was photoshopped and that dog is not really that big. Now this photo right here made the entire world start to panic. When people first saw this photo, they thought that these were the hands of God and that the world was ending. But right when the photo went viral, the guy who made it said it was fake and that there was no need to panic. These are hidden secrets and famous logos that you did not know about. Everybody has seen the Amazon logo. It's just Amazon with the yellow arrow under it. But let's take a closer look at it. The arrow starts on the letter A and then ends on the letter Z. It's a genius way of Amazon showing the variety of products that they sell. Basically, if it starts with the letter in the alphabet, they got it. From A to Z. Next is Toyota. This is Toyota's logo. It's pretty simple, right? But did you know every letter in Toyota is hidden inside that logo? You have the T, O, Y, O, T, A. Now this is the FedEx logo. It's super simple, right? But if you look closely, you can see they created a space between the E and the X, which forms a perfect arrow. The arrow represents their speed and ability, and I guarantee now that you saw this, you won't be able to unsee it. These are pictures that you were never meant to see, part 2. Up first is a picture of a human heart. Now, this doesn't look like a normal heart, and that's because this is what a human heart looks like when all the blood is completely drained out of it. Next up is what the inside of a big lighter looks like. Am I the only one that never knew that these big lighters were just made of smaller lighters? This next one is pretty creepy. This is what an owl looks like with no feathers. This just looks extremely weird. And I don't know what I would do if this thing came running at me. Finally is what the inside of a fire alarm looks like. Who would have thought that inside of a fire alarm was only a little switch? The scary reality of what would happen if humans disappeared. In a few days, subway tunnels will flood with water without people to pump the groundwater out. The water will then rise to the streets and turn avenues into rivers. Within a few weeks, most house pets will starve to death because they would not be accustomed to hunting in the wild. All zoo animals will escape, and all endangered populations will completely bounce back, and eventually the animals will inhabit all cities and rule the world. Months later, chemicals used in chemical plants will release into the air without energy to run them and settle into the atmosphere, creating a mini nuclear winter. Within a month without humans, all nuclear plants will explode and create nuclear radiation lasting for 1,000 years. This is a creepy story about the bus crash. On a late Halloween afternoon, a school bus was on its usual route, but it wasn't your typical school bus or typical kids. There was 8 of them. They were different, troubled, and disturbed. Every day their parents put their dirty little secrets on this bus, and they were driven to a special school miles outside of town. But one day the driver took a different route, and instead of taking the kids home, he took the bus to an abandoned rock quarry. What the kids didn't know was that over the years, their parents had become exhausted and embarrassed, and they were willing to do anything to ease their burden and get rid of their kids completely. So one day the parents approached the bus driver and made him an offer. With the money they collected, they asked him to do the unthinkable. And it worked perfectly. The driver drove the kids and himself off a cliff, and they all died on impact. The driver, the bus, and the kids were never found, and nobody suspected a thing from their parents. These are pictures that fooled the entire world, part 3. Up first is a photo of a bear who is chasing a guy on a bike. When this photo started to go around on the internet, people were extremely worried about the guy on the bike and wonder if he lived or died. But it actually turns out that the photo was fake and the man on the bike was photoshopped in front of the bear. Next up is this photo. When this photo first went viral, people believed that aliens did this and were coming to invade Earth. But in reality, a farmer by the name of Doug Bauer actually created this to make people believe that aliens did it and that they were coming to Earth. His plan worked, and everybody believed that it was aliens. Next is the photo of a flooded mall with sharks in the water. When this photo started to go around, people were in complete shock on how the sharks got into the mall. It also made millions of people believe that all flood water has sharks in it. But it turns out that the photo was photoshopped and it's not real. This is a scary story about the family photo. There was a single mother who had 3 daughters. The youngest daughter was then diagnosed with a brain tumor, and the young girl only had 3 months to live. The family was devastated. The mom then decided to get a family photo taken so they have something to remember her by. The photographer came over and took the photo. They then framed the photo and hung it up over the fireplace. 3 months later, the young girl passed away. The funeral took place 2 days after her death. After the funeral, the mother was sitting near the fireplace, and she looked up at the family photo. She was horrified when she noticed that the daughter's face who died was shifting and changing, looking almost demonic. The mom was terrified. She then took the photo to a psychic, and the psychic took one look at the photo and stepped back in horror. The psychic said, "I'm so sorry I have to tell you this, but your daughter fell into hell." This is a creepy story about Help Me. A teenage girl named Kathy was babysitting 2 kids. There was a 7-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl. Their parents went out to see a movie, and they wouldn't be home till late. Around 9 o'clock that night, the phone rang. Kathy answered the phone and heard a creepy voice saying, "Help me, for heaven's sake, help me." She immediately hung up and thought it was a prank. Then 30 minutes later, the phone rang again with the same voice saying, "Help me, somebody please help me." This time Kathy got scared. The children asked who it was, but she told them not to worry, it was fine. Another 30 minutes went by, and the phone rang one more time. The voice sounded scared and desperate this time, saying, "Help me, for heaven's sake, will somebody help me?" Then the phone went dead. Then seconds later, there was a knock at the front door, and she heard the same voice saying, help me," over and over again. Kathy says she's gonna let him in because he needs help. When the parents arrived home that night, they went into the house. Kathy and their children were laying dead in the living room with all their arms and legs cut off. This is how long you would survive on other planets. Up first is Uranus. You would only survive for 0.9 seconds on this planet. Even with a spacesuit, you would not stand a chance. Next up is Saturn. You would only survive 0.7 seconds on this planet. Right when you step foot on this planet, or just hit the atmosphere, you will be crushed instantly. Next up is Venus. You would only survive 1 second on this planet. Being on this planet is the equivalent of being in an oven that is over 1000 degrees Fahrenheit. Finally is the moon. You can survive on the moon with a spacesuit, but without a spacesuit, you would only survive for 15 seconds. This is the creepy story about the dad. There was a little girl named Leah who always had nightmares every night. She always woke up sweating and scared. One night she was sleeping and she was having a nightmare. It was about a group of 5 men trying to chase her down and kill her. She then woke up screaming and sweating like never before. Her dad then heard her screaming, and he then came into her room. Leah then stared at him with a surprised face. He then sat on her bed and said, "What's wrong, sweetie? Is everything okay?" Leah was speechless and confused. Her dad then said, "It's okay, everyone has nightmares." Leah then let out a terrifying scream. She jumped out of bed and couldn't believe her dad was here, because her dad died in a car crash 6 months ago. This scary secret about the United States dollar bills will blow your mind. Everybody definitely saw and knows every single detail about the United States dollar bills. But did you know if you fold these dollar bills correctly, it will actually foreshadow 9/11? If you fold the $5 bill correctly, it shows 2 perfect twin towers. Then when you fold the $10 bill, it shows the first twin tower getting hit by a plane. Then if you fold the $20 bill, it shows the twin towers going down with black smoke on top. Then if you fold the $50 bill, the twin towers are completely down. And finally, if you fold the $100 bill, the twin towers are in complete ruin with black smoke going up. This is a scary story about the birds singing. There was a girl named Carly. It was the summer, so it was very hot every night. She always slept with the window open, and always slept good. But one night she couldn't. She kept hearing the sounds of birds singing outside her window. There was a large tree outside her window where the sound was coming from. She realized she wouldn't be able to fall asleep with this noise, so she leaned out the window and shouted, shut up, go away." She listened for flapping of wings, but she didn't hear anything. Then she realized something. It was 2 a.m. What birds will be singing this late? She then looked out into the darkness and immediately wished she hadn't. In the tree, she could make out 2 dark figures. They looked almost human, but they weren't. They were sitting on a tree branch directly across from her window, just smiling at her and waving. She shut the window immediately and then started to hear a soft laughter. She immediately called the police, but when they looked around, they couldn't find anything. Carly then moved out of the house a couple days later, never knowing what she really saw. These are pictures that you have to look at twice, part 6. Up first is a picture of a woman who appears to have an animal's body as her lower half, almost like a centaur. But if you take a closer look at this photo, you can see that there is a dog, and the black pants that she is wearing blend in with the dog's fur, making it look like they are connected. Next up is a picture of a girl at the beach who is just having a good time. But if you take a closer look at this photo, you can see that what appears to be her bun is actually the back of another man's head. Next up is a picture of a boy who is looking out into a pond of some sort. But if you take a closer look and turn your phone, you can see that he is lying down on a tree that has fallen down, and what looks like the pond is actually the sky. This is a creepy story about which is which. There was a 20-year-old couple who lived together. They loved each other so much. They were always with each other and didn't go anywhere without each other. One Saturday night, they went to the nightclub to celebrate the birthday of a friend. They drank a lot of alcohol and stayed there for hours. They left the nightclub very late. They were very eager to go to bed, so they took a shortcut and drove very fast. The next morning, they woke up, and they both felt that something about the relationship changed. Their mutual understanding was different. They no longer spoke or touched each other. They didn't kiss anymore, and they completely ignored each other. That night, they found themselves watching TV together. The news came on, and there was a story about a fatal accident that happened the night before. The newsreader said, one of the victims survived and the other one died. When the 2 victims' faces came up on the screen, the couple was horrified. They were staring at their own faces. The most terrifying thing was that there was still one question that remained unanswered. Which one of them was the ghost? This is what would happen if all humans fell asleep for 1 year. After just 5 seconds, all the cars on the road will begin to crash and pile up on each other. This would be a complete mess. Next, just after 1 minute, everybody will be sleeping in the most random places, like in the doctor's office or a grocery store, or just in the middle of the street. Next up, after 20 minutes, all the planes in the sky will begin to fall back down to Earth. On average, there is 9.7 thousand planes in the sky at once, carrying over 1.2 million people. So this wouldn't be good at all. Next, after 12 hours, millions of people would be dead. This is because whatever activity they were doing before they fell asleep could result in their death, like a car crash, plane crash, or just falling. These are photos taken before it all went wrong, part 4. Up first is a picture of a young firefighter who was running towards the Twin Towers on the morning of 9/11. This is the last photo ever taken of him, and sadly he died in the buildings when they fell down. Next up is a picture of Pavel Kashin. He was doing stunts on the top of a roof, which was 16 stories high, with a whole crowd down below watching him. But sadly, during this flip, he lost his balance and fell to his death. Finally is a picture that looks completely normal, but there is a much more sinister story behind it. These two girls are best friends, and shortly after this picture was taken, they both got drunk, and the girl on the left strangled the girl on the right with the belt that she is wearing. These are weapons that are banned in war, part 2. Up first is poison bullets. In the early days of guns, they were very inaccurate, and they weren't powerful, so soldiers put poison on the bullets, which caused a long and painful death if you got shot by one, so they were banned. Next up is napalm strikes. If you ever played Call of Duty, you know exactly what these are. This is a burning weapon that clears out anything in its path, but it cannot be used near forest or any civilization, so it's banned. Finally is spike pits. People would camouflage these pits and then smear fecal matter all over the spikes, causing a very toxic infection when somebody fell into it. This was banned because it was said to be too savage. This is what's going to happen when Antarctica melts. If all the ice melted in Antarctica, the sea level will then rise over 230 feet. The ocean will then cover all coastal cities, for example like Miami, Los Angeles, San Diego. Also, many states and countries around the world will be completely underwater and billions of people will die. And the waves that we will be getting will be completely towering over buildings. But we have nothing to worry about, because this will not happen in our lifetime. But in the off chance that it actually does, I recommend that we all get boats. This might be the scariest thing that ever happened to America. We all know that America had a lot of scary things happen to it, but this has to be the scariest thing ever. On August 29th, 1968, every single TV in America shut down. But a demonic whispering was coming from every TV in America. Many people believed that it was the devil trying to get across some message, but nobody really understood it. This lasted for about 25 seconds, then all the TVs came back on. To this day, nobody knows what caused it or why it happened, but everybody believes it was the works of the devil. These are facts that will make your skin crawl, part 1. Up first, did you know that women can actually give birth after death? It's extremely rare, but it's called coffin birth. Up next, everybody has definitely heard of the 5-second rule and probably applied it in your life at least once. But did you know in those 5 seconds, minor insects can still crawl on your food after you drop it on the floor, pick it up, and then eat it? Up next, if a black cat looks at you and then suddenly runs away, it means that something unusual is about to happen to you. So if this happened to you recently, then I recommend just staying in your room and not leaving. Finally, did you know that a cockroach can live 9 days without its head before it starves to death? This is absolutely crazy. And as weird as this sounds, I have to see it to believe it. These are pictures that fooled the entire world, part 7. First is the photo of a man who is flipping a massive pan of rice. When this photo went viral, everyone was amazed that he actually did this, but in reality, that is actually a sculpture, and he is just holding it. Next is the photo of a camera crew being chased by a massive bear. When people first saw this photo, they were worried about all the men and were hoping that they were all safe. But it actually turns out that this photo is photoshopped and it's completely fake. Finally is the photo of Martin Luther King Jr. flipping somebody off who was taking a picture of him. When everybody first saw this photo, they were so confused why Martin Luther King did this. But it actually turns out that he was actually holding up the peace sign and he wasn't flipping off anybody. These are pictures that fooled the entire world, part 10. This is a picture of Osama bin Laden shortly after he got shot and killed. This photo went completely viral and everybody believed it. But in reality, the photo is fake And this picture is from the movie Black Hawk Down with Osama bin Laden's face photoshopped on another body. Everybody has seen this picture of Abraham Lincoln. But did you know that since Abraham Lincoln did not have any professional photos, they just took his head and put it on John Calhoun's body, and nobody noticed this for many, many years. Finally is a picture of Barack Obama, who went to a college party. When people started seeing this photo, they could not believe that Barack Obama actually went to parties, but it later turned out to be completely fake and photoshopped. Crazy facts about space that will blow your mind? Part 1. The moon was once a piece of the Earth. When the Earth was a young planet, it was hit by a giant object that broke a piece off, creating the moon. The piece began to orbit the Earth due to gravitational pull. Next is the largest known asteroid, which is 600 miles wide. It is located in the asteroid belt between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. It accounts for 33% of the entire belt's mass. Finally, there is a volcano on Mars that is 3 times the size of Mount Everest. It is called Olympus Mons. It is 372 miles wide and 13 miles high. This man claims to be a time traveler, and what he says will happen will blow your mind. This man, known as Edward, was an engineer in a laboratory in Los Angeles when he took part in an experiment and traveled to the year 5000 to take photos. He's now back and is sharing with us what would happen in the years to come. Edward has a picture of Los Angeles that he took in the future, and the whole city is completely underwater. He said the melting of ice caps due to global warming will cause the city to disappear underwater. He said he was standing on a huge wooden platform with many other people, houses, buildings, and everything was made of wood. He said the whole world would be underwater and not just Los Angeles, because when the ice caps melted, it raised the sea level tremendously. This is really scary if it's true, and if it is, we must become good swimmers. These are the strangest ways that people have ever died. In 1920, dancer Isabel Duncan was going for a ride in a sports car and was wearing a very long scarf. Suddenly, the scarf got caught in the back tire and snapped Isabel's neck in 2. Next, there was an 88-year-old woman who lived in Brazil, was in the hospital being taken care of, when her nurse accidentally injected soup directly into her veins instead of her feeding tube. Because of this, the 88-year-old woman died of a stroke not long after. Next up is a Russian woman named Fagilyu, who was wrongly pronounced dead by doctors. During her funeral, when all her friends and family were there, she suddenly woke up and was in shock that she was at her own funeral. She then immediately had a heart attack and died. This is a story about D.B. Cooper. In 1971, D.B. Cooper boarded a flight from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. He was wearing a dark suit and a black tie. While the plane was in the air, he opened his briefcase, showing a bomb to the flight attendant, and then hijacked the plane. The plane then landed in Seattle, where he demanded $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes and food before releasing all the passengers. With only 3 pilots and 1 flight attendant left on board, they took off from Seattle with the money, the parachutes, and the food. 45 minutes into takeoff, Cooper jumped out of the plane, tying the bag of money around himself and leaving 2 parachutes and his black tie. The military was called days after the hijacking and sent 1,000 troops to search the suspected drop zone of Cooper. Even a super secret spy plane was sent to photograph the entire flight path of the plane, but there was no sign of D.B. Cooper. D.B. Cooper was never found, and the case was never solved. It remains one of the biggest U.S. mysteries in history. This is the scary story about the taillight. There was a girl named Maria who was driving around one night when she noticed a car driving super close behind her. She thought maybe they were in a rush, so she turned to get off the road, but the car turned also. Maria began to get a little worried, but maybe thought it was a coincidence. She then made another turn, and so did the car. Only this time, the car bumped hers. She began to panic and started to drive really fast down the road, but the car was still right behind her. The car then hit hers again, and her car began spinning. A tall man then stepped out of the car who hit her and went over to her car and dragged her out. He then beat her and tied her up and threw her in his back seat. Maria was so scared she wanted to die. The man driving was going super fast and wasn't saying a word. Suddenly, cop lights started to flash behind his car. Right when the cop got to the car window, he called for backup. He saw Maria tied up in the back seat, and he knew this man. The man was a serial killer who has been running for weeks, and he was about to add another victim to his list. Luckily, his taillight was out. This is the scary truth behind the Amber Alert. Okay, so we all know what an Amber Alert is, and majority of people just ignore it whenever they get the notification on their phone. But do you know the story of why we get Amber Alerts? If not, you're about to find out. This is Amber Hagerman, and in 1996, she was snatched off of her bicycle in Arlington, Texas, and forced into a black pickup truck. Her body was found 4 days later near a stream. But the creepiest part about this whole case, to this day, the man who did this was never found, and they have no evidence pointing in any direction. But a couple days after her disappearance, Diana Simone came up with the idea of the Amber Alert. The Amber Alert is now used in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and 33 other countries. And it's saved over 1,000 children. So next time you get an Amber Alert, don't ignore it. This is the scary urban legend about Goatman. Goatman is a humanoid creature who was only seen in the United States. He is said to be over 7 feet tall and have insane strength. Goatman is known for killing couples in cars, and he goes to neighborhoods, breaks into people's houses, and rapes and kills them. Goatman's origin is that a mad scientist conducted experiments on a goat and it went extremely wrong. It then turned the goat into half man, half goat, and a blood-hungry creature looking to kill anything he sees. Goatman wields a giant axe, which he cuts down his victims with. Goatman is a very dangerous creature and is a very feared urban legend. So if you're ever unlucky enough to see him, you better run. We all know North Korea is a very weird country. But wait till you hear what they're telling their citizens, part 2. Up first, Kim Jong-un tells his citizens of North Korea that he has many unicorns, and that there is a magical unicorn cave in North Korea where they live. Sometimes I wonder if this man's okay. Next up, North Korea tells their citizens that they are the happiest country in the world, and that the United States is the least happiest country in the world. But in reality, it's the complete opposite. If only the citizens of North Korea actually saw the world, maybe there would be an uprising. Finally, North Korea tells their citizens that Kim Jong-il, who was the supreme leader before Kim Jong-un, was born under a double rainbow, and the moment that he was born, a new star in the sky formed. This is absolutely crazy, and I don't know how they believe this. These are videos humans were never meant to see, part 27. Okay, so everybody watching this video probably never heard what English sounds like if you don't understand it. Since it's the language we all speak, we don't know what it sounds like when we don't understand it. But the video I'm about to show you shows exactly what it sounds like to hear people speaking English when you don't understand them. And it's kind of crazy to wrap your head around.
So I went to York on the wash today.
Oh?
Yeah, that doll's a ring on her face. Can't believe that Maury album, John. Did you stop by the love that call?
Yeah, I come by the mention. I played that Privateum by the wrong front line today.
Oh, the raising man with an ash marine? That for me, you agreed that Trajan.
No, her station is trapped. I mean, why the crest soldier for the Magdalene nation is further grad to my Chosik.
Chosik for the Magalon?
Magalon my shit.
Whatever picture you see first reveals what kind of person you are, part 4. Up first is this picture. If you see a dog's leg and tail, it means that you are a very creative thinker and could get yourself out of any situation. But if you saw a dog's snout, it means that friendship is everything to you and that you always give people second chances. Next up is this picture. If you saw the Wolverine, it means that you are very brave and that you're a very big Marvel fan. But if you saw 2 Batmans, it means that you're a problem solver and that you like DC over Marvel. If you ever saw SpongeBob SquarePants as a kid, then you need to watch this video. Okay, so I'm guessing that everybody saw SpongeBob as a kid, but I don't think we should be happy about that anymore. Because researchers have come out to say, watching SpongeBob SquarePants as a kid may have damaged your brain. They said watching fast-paced cartoons like SpongeBob, even for just a few minutes, could damage abstract thinking, problem-solving skills, and even impulse control. I honestly don't know how true this is, but I really hope it's not, because I think every single kid in the world was watching SpongeBob at least once in their life. This is what angels actually look like. Okay, so we all thought that angels were just humans with wings, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. If we went by how the Bible described angels, they wouldn't look anything like this, but instead look terrifying and extremely weird. Let me show you. This woman found a tracker on her daughter's leg, and what happens will blow your mind. One day, a woman named Jenna and her daughter Abby went to the mall. When they left the mall and got home, Jenna noticed that her daughter had a black thing on her leg. She then asked her what it was, and her daughter said that the man at the mall put it there and said to her, "I'll come for you later." After hearing this, Jenna flew into a panic and called the police, telling them everything. When the police came, they assumed that the man would come at any time, so they parked their cars down the street and hid. About 1 hour later, a man in a beat-up pickup truck parked a couple houses down from the young girl's house. The cops then went up to the man and started questioning him. They then brought out the daughter to identify him, and she confirmed it was the man from the mall who put the tracker on her. He was then arrested and taken to prison. Jenna was very lucky that she saw the tracker on her daughter's leg, or her daughter would have never been seen again. Most dangerous places in the world, part 3. Up first, we have Lake Natron located in Tanzania. This lake is one of the most deadliest bodies of water in the whole world. The water is oversaturated with salt. It could reach temperatures of 140 degrees Fahrenheit. It could mummify dead bodies, and it burns the skin and eyes of unadapted animals and humans. Next is the Bermuda Triangle located in the North Atlantic Ocean. It's one of the most feared areas in the whole world. The area has been associated with countless disappearances. People think it's magnetic fields or aliens. Some ships and planes were never found. Scientists believe they solved the issue, but they would never know for sure. Finally, we have Fraser Island. The deserted beaches are home to deadly spiders, aggressive wild dingo dogs, and the ocean is infested with sharks and venomous jellyfish. The waters can get super rough, and riptides form not far offshore. Would you rather never eat your favorite food again, or never drink your favorite drink again? These are the hardest would you rather questions in the world, part 5. Up first, would you rather have a pause button in your life, or a rewind button? I'll definitely go with the rewind button, mainly because you could go back and fix all your mistakes. Next up, would you rather drown to death or burn to death? I'm going to go with burn to death, because after like 3 to 5 seconds, you don't feel anything because all of your nerves are burnt away. But when you drown, that is an agonizing death. Finally, would you rather save 3 of your closest family members, or save 1,000 people that you don't even know? I'm definitely picking my 3 family members, mainly because they're my family. Worst diseases in history, part 2. Up first, we have Ebola. Ebola is a virus that causes severe bleeding, organ failure, and it can lead to death. It can be spread by contact with bodily fluids. Symptoms are fever, headache and muscle pain, internal bleeding, vomiting and coughing blood, and diarrhea. More than 28,000 infections, and out of that 11,300 died. Up next, we have the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu was a virus that causes severe pneumonia. Patients would turn blue because of lack of oxygen due to a bloody substance filling their lungs. Symptoms were fever, the chills, and you were just super weak. It was spread by coughing and sneezing and any other bodily fluid. Between 20 and 50 million people died. Finally, we have the Asian flu. This caused respiratory illness. Symptoms were sore throat, a dry cough, difficulty breathing, and a stuffy nose. 1 to 4 million people died from this. These are pictures that you have to look at twice, part 7. Up first is a picture of what appears to be a giant monkey putting his paw on a car. But if you take a closer look at this photo, you can see that this monkey is on the windshield of a car, making it look way bigger than it actually is. Next is a picture of a boy who appears to have the world's longest arm. But if you look at the photo again, you can see that there is somebody else underneath the table sticking their arm out, making the 2 arms look connected. Finally is a picture of what appears to be a man sticking his butt in his baby's face. But that is not what's happening. If you take a closer look, you can see that that is the man's head and shoulder, and it is not his butt, but it sure looks like it is. These are the most bone-chilling photos on the internet, part 3. This was just a normal picture of a wedding, until you look in the background, and you can see what appears to be a cult wearing hoods and robes. This is super disturbing, and I wonder what their intentions were for being at that wedding. Next is a photo of a man who was dressed as Santa, going door to door surprising kids. But they had no idea that this man would later kidnap them, and most likely killed them, because these 2 girls were never found. And the Santa Claus costume that the man is wearing is also very chilling. Finally is this photo. This photo looks photoshopped, but it's not. This couple has on what appears to be some sort of animal mask, posing for a picture. This photo just gives me chills looking at it, and there's just something about it that makes it very disturbing. The scary reality of what would happen if Jupiter disappeared. At first, the night sky would appear normal, but after a few days, big flashes of light would appear in the sky. Slowly, these flashes will get bigger and bigger. Then everybody would see meteorites coming at them. Because without Jupiter, most big or small space rocks and asteroids would be approaching towards the Earth. Millions of asteroids that were supposed to hit the Earth were pulled away by Jupiter's gravity. Life as we know it on Earth would not exist without Jupiter. And this means humanity would have never existed. Most popular food in each country? Part 4. Most popular food in Norway is lefse. I would love to have one of these. Most popular food in Poland are pierogies. If you're a pierogi fan, you gotta go here. Most popular food in Finland is salmiakki. This is salt and licorice. I think it's worth a try. Most popular food in Greece is moussaka. I never even heard of this, but apparently it's super popular in Greece. These are weapons that are banned in war. Up first, believe it or not, pepper spray is banned in war. This is because it disrupts your breathing, and therefore it is banned. Next up is mustard gas. This causes the lungs to fill up with liquid, making the victim drown on land. Even this is way too brutal for war, so it's banned. Next up is flamethrowers. Now, during war, you can use a flamethrower only in an open field, but they are banned from any other area because it cannot be aimed very good, and the fires will spread. The scary reality of what would happen if oxygen disappeared for 5 seconds. Buildings and houses would turn into dust, and any other standing structure would be completely destroyed. Every single vehicle on the entire planet would immediately stop working. All airplanes in the air would immediately start crashing down. Every drop of water in the ocean would evaporate almost instantly. And just like the oceans, every single person's body on Earth would evaporate into space. The ground beneath us would not even exist anymore, and the craziest part is that the whole world will literally come to an end. This is how big the sun actually is. Okay, so we all know how big and scary the sun is. But after I show you this, you will realize how big and scary the sun actually is. Would you rather experience the beginning of Earth or the end of Earth? These are the hardest would you rather questions in the world, part 7. Up first, would you rather run 100 miles per hour or fly 10 miles per hour? I'll have to go with flying 10 miles per hour because who doesn't want to fly? Next up, would you rather visit 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future? I'll definitely go with 100 years in the future because I'm very curious about the future. Would you rather watch your parents having you-know-what for the rest of your life, or join in once to stop it? I'll have to go with watching them for the rest of my life, because I will never join them. This old woman was getting robbed by 2 men, and you won't believe what saved her. This 82-year-old woman named Linda Davis was walking down a street when 2 men ran up to her and tried to rob her. They were pushing her around, taking her purse and dragging her. Linda was screaming for help. But not one person came to the rescue, except for a dog. This dog was a German Shepherd and jumped on one of the 2 men and bit the one side of the man's body and did not let go. This made the other man run away and drop all of Linda's belongings. The dog did not let go of the man until the police arrived and arrested him. Linda Davis then found the owner of the dog and told them what exactly happened. They were in awe at the whole situation and couldn't believe their dog helped her. Since that day, Linda sees the dog that saved her from being robbed at least once a week. Our timeline is completely messed up and it's going to blow your mind. Up first, for example, Eminem and Picasso were alive at the same time for 2 years. I don't know about you, but am I the only one that thought Picasso was around in the 1800s? Another one to wrap your head around is that the woolly mammoths were around at the same time the pyramids were being built. But just wait, this is just the beginning. Next, Rosa Parks lived long enough to see the first 2 Shrek movies in theaters. Like, what? Next, when the Declaration of Independence was being signed, nobody knew dinosaurs even existed. Think about that, like dinosaurs weren't even discovered yet. This next one is going to absolutely blow your mind. Cleopatra was born closer to the invention of the iPhone than to the actual pyramids being built. Finally, this next one makes zero sense, but it's absolutely true. Oxford University was founded 300 years before the Aztec Empire. Like, how? Most popular food in each state, part 4. Most popular food in Washington is cedar plank salmon. Their seafood is insanely fresh there. Most popular food in Minnesota is a Juicy Lucy. Everybody I talked to that had one of these said they're amazing. Most popular food in Tennessee is hot chicken. You can never go wrong with hot chicken. Most popular food in Kentucky is a hot brown. I never had one of these, but I like everything on it. Most popular food in Massachusetts is a fluffernutter. This is peanut butter and marshmallow fluff. This is what it would look like if different planets replaced our moon. This is what it would look like if Mercury was our moon. It kinda looks just like our moon already, but it's still pretty cool. Next is Venus. This is what it would look like if Venus was our moon. It's pretty cool and it's a lot bigger than Mercury. Now this is what it would look like if Earth was our moon. So if you ever wondered what it would look like if Earth was our moon, here you go. Next up is Mars. If Mars was our moon, this is what it would look like. It looks pretty small, honestly, but nonetheless, it's still very cool. Now this is what it will look like if Jupiter was our moon. It will be completely massive and cover the whole sky. Next is Saturn. If Saturn was our moon, it is so massive that it too will cover our whole sky. Next is Uranus. If this was our moon, it will appear very massive to us, but definitely not as big as Saturn or Jupiter. Finally is Neptune. If Neptune was our moon, it would appear the same size as Uranus. This is the scary theory about Bob Ross. Up first, we all know who Bob Ross is. He's a very famous painter who is known for his bright attitude and his very calm demeanor. But people think Bob Ross was a serial killer, and every single one of his paintings is where he buried the bodies. People are saying this because this painting by Bob Ross is called Happy Little Accidents. Nothing special, right? But this is where they found 5 female bodies that were half eaten and dead. The painting in this location are almost identical, and this might raise the question, was Bob Ross a serial killer? Most popular food in each country, part 2. Most popular food in Ireland is soda bread. Every family in Ireland has their own recipe for soda bread. Most popular food in Italy is pizza. I never had pizza straight from Italy, but I'm positive it's the best. Most popular food in Sweden is meatballs. These things are cooked in rich spices and creamy gravy broth. Most popular food in England is fish and chips. This is fried fish and deep fried French fries or chips. These are insane tactics used by the Secret Service to protect the president. In the event that the president sustains a very crucial injury, the president's car, which is called the Beast, has a fully equipped blood bank in the car, with plasma matching the president's type. And all the agents are fully trained in emergency medical procedures. Next up, if anybody ever threatens to kill the president online, even if it's a joke, the Secret Service will go into complete police mode, and they will find you and get to the bottom of it. They will look into everything that happened in your life, talk to past bosses, friends, and everything in between. Finally, before the president eats any food, the Secret Service always tastes it first to make sure that it's not poisoned or is going to harm the president in any way.